The IJNR trip is, so far, this is my first one, but it's been absolutely fabulous.
I did a lot of things that I couldn't have done on my own. Went down in a copper nickel mine. I saw iron ore pit, went to an iron ore processing plant.
The first thing I noticed was the networking experience. Meeting journalists both older than me that had been doing this for years and younger than me that are in my same situation.
The opportunity to talk to so many different people in one go, in one insanely busy, crammed week, is unlike anything I've ever experienced before.
Well, IJNR is it's a great experience. You get put out in the field in a plethora of different locations. They secure all the access.
We can get into places and have them talk to us in ways that I could probably never get.
And one of the other things that's great about IJNR is some perspectives are easy to get. It's always easy to talk to the people who are against the incinerator or against the chicken farm. It's harder to get the people from the industry, and I think IJNR provides a very valuable perspective.
Another thing I liked was having a group of journalists in the same room interviewing the same couple of people. You get to hear all these different questions, some of which I would have asked, but many of which I wouldn't have thought of.
And the reason I loved IJNR was because there were so many smart people and they were asking really great questions. And it was like being at Smart Kid Camp.
Getting out into the field, of course, is the best way to do journalism. It really makes, a story much better than it would be if you were behind a desk making phone calls.
We're looking for the journalists who want to be able to bring the visceral experiences of the field into the stories that they're telling to the public. You need to see the beach that's being eroded. You need to talk to the rancher who's dealing with the possibility of an endangered species listing impacting his land use.
Well, it matters because you see it and you talk to people who really live in those areas. I mean, we do so much of our work these days on the phone, and you really don't get a feel for place, you don't get a feel for characters, you don't get a feel for narrative when you do that kind of thing. When you come out here, you get all of that.
The model of IJNR is to pull journalists out of the office and take them to the natural landscapes and watersheds where the action is.
I think the single most forceful thing IJNR does is get people outdoors to see settings and places where issues are being fought over or worked on.
You need to get out and understand a little bit about the land you're writing about, and also meet people with numerous different perspectives about those issues, talking about the trade-offs of economic enterprise, environmental protection, resource use.
We saw a need to provide some experience-based learning for reporters and editors. Many of them were not getting out of their newsrooms often enough, and they were relying on the telephone heavily to talk to people about problems in places they'd never seen. And we did it in the summer of '95, July of '95, and it was not a short trip. It's probably still holds the record for being the longest. It was 2 full weeks, and I'm certain that it was affectionately called Frank's Death March. There's a power in having been to a place. You can talk about it more authentically, and you've seen it with your own eyes. It does mean connecting with the places and having those places reveal themselves in ways that can become an integral part of the story.
Frank Allen is an amazing guy. I mean, he's sweet and he's funny and he's just fun to be around. Sometimes he's just quiet and you can tell he's thinking. But when Frank was along on an institute, you could always count on Frank when a speaker was maybe not being completely honest, and that may have been picked up by the journalists, but they didn't want to offend anyone. Frank has a gift for gently asking a really piercing question. Just the fact that he thought this whole thing up speaks volumes.
I wrote the founder, Frank Allen, a letter and said, what you are doing is such an incredible thing for journalism that if you ever are interested in expanding your geographic expertise to the Great Lakes region, it would be an honor and a privilege to help you build the Great Lakes program.
I was introduced to IJNR in 2008 when I was a fellow on a Great Waters Institute that went around Lake Erie, led by Frank Allen and Peter Annan. That trip really just changed the way I look at everything. It changed my understanding of the natural world. It changed my understanding of how journalism should work. By 2012, Frank actually asked me to help plan and organize an institute. The idea of keeping IJNR alive and having a hand in this amazing experiment that Frank put together for the rest of my career was an opportunity I couldn't pass on.
I think we've helped enrich the conversation, and we brought more kinds of people into the discussion, people who were shut out before. And I'm thinking now of people from Indian tribes, for example. We're getting close to 900 alumni now, and I like to think of those people as sources of light instead of heat. When you think of the audiences that they reach as a multiplying factor, it is a good size contribution.
And we want journalists to better understand those stories so they can better tell them to their listeners, their readers, their viewers, and get those stories out there to a bigger audience so that they appreciate the complexity and the importance of these stories.
So here we are in 2015. IJNR is 20 years old. Our fellows number nearly 900. We've been to all corners of the United States and parts of Canada. And in my time here, we've been in the Mountain West when we went to Glacier. We've been in the Sagebrush Sea to look at sage grouse conservation. We've been on the East Coast. We went and talked sea level rise in North Carolina. Of course, we've done multiple Great Lakes programs. Next year, we're headed to the Great Plains for the first time ever and back into the Great Lakes. So we've got a really great slate of programs, and I think that we are holding to the standard that has been set by Frank and Peter and everyone else who came before our current team. If I have any say in the matter and we can continue Frank Allen's brilliant idea well into the future, that would be nothing short of an honor.